Hey everyone, if you're looking to really nail down your JavaScript, you are in the exact right place. We're about to do a super fast run through of the absolute essentials. The core ideas that can sometimes trip us all up. Think of it as a high-speed refresher to make sure your foundation is rock solid. You ready? Let's jump in. So here's our game plan. We're going to hit 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with the basic rules of the road for JavaScript. Then we'll get into how we actually store information using variables and data types. After that, we'll see how to make our code do stuff with operators, control its logic with loops, and finally, we'll wrap everything in those powerful, reusable packages we call functions. All right, first things first, the core rules. Now, these aren't just suggestions. They're more like the laws of physics for JavaScript. They control how the engine interprets every single character you type. If you get these wrong, even the simplest code can just completely fall apart. Okay, let's talk about a classic JavaScript gotcha, automatic semicolon insertion. On the left, you see that a simple line break usually works just like a semicolon. JavaScript is trying to be helpful, but look at the right. This is where that helpfulness backfires. The engine gets confused and tries to read alert and the one-to array as one single statement, which just breaks everything. The big takeaway here, just use semicolons. Seriously, it's a simple habit that will save you so many headaches down the line. And here is probably the best pro tip I can give you for writing modern code. Just by putting use strict at the very top of your script or at the top of a function, you're basically telling JavaScript, hey, let's play by the modern rules. It gets rid of some old weird behaviors, and better yet, it makes some silent errors actually throw an error so you can see them. It's one line that makes your code way more reliable. So we've got the rules of the language down. Now let's talk about the actual stuff our code is going to work with. And that brings us to variables and data types. These are just the containers we use to hold on to every piece of information in our program. In modern JavaScript, you're really only going to use 2 keywords to create variables. Use let for anything that you know is going to change, like a score or a counter. Use const for values that should never change, like a birthday or a server address. So, what about var? Well, var is the old way of doing things. It has some really weird scoping rules that caused a lot of bugs, which is exactly why let and const were invented. So, stick with the new kids on the block. Your code will thank you. Now, here's a really key feature of JavaScript. It is dynamically typed. And what does that mean? It's actually pretty simple. It just means a variable isn't locked into one specific data type. As you can see here, we can create a variable x, give it a number, and then later on, we can just decide to put a string in it instead. The variable is just a flexible box. It holds whatever you need it to at the moment. And those boxes can hold 8 different types of data. You got your basics, of course. Number, string for any kind of text, and boolean for simple true or false. If you need to work with ridiculously huge numbers, there's big int. Then there are 2 ways to say nothing. Null means you intentionally made it empty, while undefined means a value was just never assigned. And finally, object and symbol are for more advanced stuff like complex data and unique IDs. Okay, we know how to store information. Now for the really fun part, making our code actually do things. This next bit is all about operators, the symbols that let us manipulate data, and how we can create some basic, direct interactions with the user. The prompt function is a super easy way to get some input. It just pops up a little dialog box with a question, and whatever the user types in gets returned to your script as a string. Now the key thing to remember is that this is modal. It freezes the entire web page until the user clicks OK or cancel. Confirm is very similar. It also pops up a box, but this one is for a simple yes or no question. It gives you back a boolean. You get true if the user hits OK and false if they hit cancel. This is perfect for asking things like, are you sure you want to do that? And the simplest one of all is alert. This just shows a message. That's it. There's no input, there's no choice to make. It's just a one-way communication to give the user some information. Okay, lean in for this one, because this is probably one of the biggest sources of bugs for people learning JavaScript. It's the difference between strict and loose equality. The triple equals is strict. It checks if both the value and the data type are identical. So the number 0 is not strictly equal to the boolean false. But the double equals is loose. It tries to be clever and convert the types for you. It'll turn false into 0 and then say, hey, these are equal. So the rule of thumb, to avoid weird, unpredictable bugs, just always use strict equality. Always use the triple equals. So we can interact with users, we can compare values, and that lets us start building logic into our programs. And that brings us to controlling the program's flow. This is how we make our code smart. how it makes decisions using conditionals, and repeats actions using loops. You're going to run into three main types of loops. The while loop is fantastic when you're not sure how many times you need to repeat something. It just keeps going as long as the condition is true. The do while loop is almost the same, but it guarantees the code inside will run at least one time before it ever checks the condition. And then you have the classic for loop, which is your go-to when you know exactly how many times you need to loop. And hey, remember that strict equality thing we just talked about? Well, here's where it can come back to bite you. The switch statement behind the scenes uses strict equality, the triple equals, to do its comparisons. And remember how prompt always gives you a string? Well, that means the string 18 that the user types in will not match the number 18 in that first case. It will only match the string 18. It's a really subtle detail, but it's crucial for getting switch statements to work the way you expect. All right, we've made it to our final section, and you could argue it's the most important one. Functions. If variables are the nouns of JavaScript, then functions are the verbs. They are the absolute building blocks that let us organize our code into neat, reusable pieces so we aren't writing the same thing over and over and over again. Now, you'll see functions created in a few different ways. The most classic is the function declaration. Then there's the function expression, which is when you assign an anonymous function to a variable. But the most modern way, and the one you'll see a lot, is the arrow function. As you can tell, the syntax is way shorter and cleaner, which makes it perfect for simple, quick operations. And as you're working with functions, just keep these three quick concepts in mind. First, any variables you create inside a function stay inside that function. That's called local scope. Second, you can give your parameters default values, which is super handy for making your functions more flexible. And finally, if you forget to return a value from a function, JavaScript will automatically make it return undefined. And that is our high-speed tour. We've covered the core rules, how to handle data, how to use operators, how to control the program's flow, and the incredible power of functions. Every one of these pieces fits together to form the foundation of literally everything you will ever build in JavaScript. So, now that your fundamentals are solid, the only question is, what are you going to build next?